Hurricane Melissa, now classified as a Category 5 storm, very strong, is bearing down on Jamaica and parts of the Caribbean, threatening catastrophic impacts including torrential rain, storm surges and flooding. Updates still coming in the newsroom. Ladies and gentlemen, meanwhile, tensions around the Gaza conflict continue. Attacks by Hamas and military responses by Israel carry on despite ceasefire efforts. Often, our international affairs commentator Shamsul Alam Panto says it is a fragile ceasefire. Let me welcome our international affairs commentator Shamsul Alam Panto, and let me ask him, sir, what are the latest you have on international affairs, global developments? There are so many issues I have in my hand. I think you have more updates.
Thank you, Mr. Kanchan. A very warm good afternoon to our viewers who are watching this program. Let me begin today our discussion. The Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer had signed a deal regarding Eurofighter Typhoon fighter jets. The President Erdogan described the agreement as a new sign of Turkey-UK strategic relations, asserting that it will pay for the joint defense projects. Of course, because of this cooperation between the two nations, it will secure 20,000 British jobs and, of course, building these state-of-the-art fighter jets. And across this, we also have US Secretary of State Marco Rubio holding a telephonic conversation between Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi. This comes as Donald Trump, the US President, is planning to meet the Chinese President Xi Jinping in the upcoming APEC summit, which is, of course, the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation. It is set to take place tomorrow in South Korea. And also across from this, Donald Trump today had landed in Japan. He had met Emperor Naruhito, and of course today also meeting Prime Minister who is newly elect. She is, of course, Sanae Takaichi, and they both shall be discussing a very important trade deal regarding the rare earths.
Excellent. There are so many issues in your hand too. Let me welcome our geopolitical correspondent based in Washington, D.C., Norman Floyd Barnes. Norman, our international affairs commentator already said that your president is now in Japan, will meet the Japanese king and the prime minister. But I want to know what are the other latest headlines or news topics you are following from Washington, D.C.
Good morning. Today, we start a new day in Washington, D.C. With another bit of news regarding the job market. Amazon just notified employees, 30,000 employees will be laid off today as a result of the ongoing labor government issues here in the United States, regarding the Congress. So once again, things are turning pretty dismal for the average workers and people. So with this notice, another 30,000 people will be out looking for a new job.
All right, Norman, it is of course a big issue for the American job market and American new job seekers, and of course for the current employees who are losing jobs. Sir, I want to come to you. See, American people are struggling with economic turmoil. American people are suffering from service from the federal government shutdown. 43 million people are suffering food crisis. Now you heard from Norman, our geopolitical correspondent from Washington, that 30,000 employees are going to be fired from one single company, Amazon, and their president is busy to reshape the Eastern Asia.
Well, of course, it's a matter of priority in my consensus. You have to look at it in this way, that the government has been shut down. The federal government has been requiring this funding, which is not being arrived at because of this shutdown, and of course it has a drastic effect on towards the economy. Well, this time around the shutdown includes the administration trying to lay off a lot of government workers who have been serving the nation ever since. Of course, that does create a sentiment amongst the general public that this leader is actually not focused on the priorities here at home, otherwise outside. But we know that Donald Trump is trying to balance out Asia in this new war, we can call it, a new front. We can definitely include rare earths as a point of dialogue between such nations. But once again, coming back to the problems inside the 50 states that include the United States of America, one of those issues definitely include the attack on the immigration issues. Immigrants from vast cultures, backgrounds and countries reside in America and of course serve the American population. Once again, these immigrants that move into America, it's not because of illegal migration, it's more of those who want to do jobs for the betterment of the people residing in America. So that is quite so important. And we know how the ICE has gone to various cities detaining people. One of those instances that I picked out was in New York City, street vendors, those who help out the casual gentleman and lady who walk down the street. These people were taken in by ICE agents, must agents, and what they say is it's in the amendment inside American rights that says that one can defend themselves in the face of dealing with someone who is a must agent. And most of these ICE agents are, of course, concealing their identity as they're doing crimes that's creating a new precedent.
Exactly, sir. Let us begin the discussions, in-depth discussions today with the US government shutdown standoff. In the US, lawmakers remain at an impasse on funding, making the second longest government shutdown in the history of United States, with potential global ripple effects, especially on economy, confidence and policy, including bilateral relationship with allies countries too. I want to do a question to Norman because he understands this issue better than all of us. Why is the US government shutdown important for international observers and not just a domestic issue, because economic situation guides the business directions with the counterparts?
Yes, this question poses a very concerning observations from the world. We here in the United States has a non-functioning government. Basically, the government is not functioning. There's no budget. So without a budget, we can't form the necessary functions as a government. People are not working, so we can't process trade issues. We can't make decisions about domestic assistance. People are out of work. This gives a poor impression on any foreign investors, people who want to do business with the country. It gives an appearance that the United States is unstable, which right now we are very unstable. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We can't decide on how much money we can spend. We can't put food on the table for people, and people are losing jobs. So it's very risky right now to do anything regarding long-term relationship with the United States until we resolve our internal issues.
All right, Norman. So I need to connect and integrate your answer with our international affairs commentator, because he has a keen eyes on how it affects on the global economy, sir. How might extended US political, I should call it paralysis, affect global markets, US foreign policy credibility or international commitments? I want to add Bangladesh effects also, because Bangladesh has the largest ready-made garments market in the United States.
Well, of course, that example is of Bangladesh, but if you look at America and what Donald Trump's administration has done over the last 10 months, at a huge tariff package for 70 nations, it has caused ripple effects throughout the entire world-like community. And of course, economists and those who work in trade, of course, feel that America, a country that is by far one of the only powers in the world, Western alike. When you think about Western nations, you look at immediately at United States of America. And what I understand is because of such a tariff package that happened, every nation on this planet will now think otherwise, or will try to look towards another nation that could probably satisfy their demands and needs. Especially now that the federal government is shut down, most nations are wondering when will a restart take place. And according to a poll, almost 40% of Americans cited costs of living issues, healthcare, food, housing, and energy to be the single most important factor they will use as a remark for the next election. We know that the midterm election is upcoming, and of course, how much or so Donald Trump is ready to handle the upcoming election will be a matter to check.
All right, sir. Right this moment, I have received two very high voltage breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. According to the news agency Reuters, Russian air defense said they shot down dozens of Ukrainian drones headed toward Moscow and nearby regions. At least one person was killed and several injured. And here is another development from ASEAN summit. China Free Trade Pact update. China and ASEAN signed an extended free trade agreement ahead of growing concern over protectionism, signing China's push to position itself as an alternative to US-led trade structures. It's a huge breakthrough. We'll definitely keep it in our discussions. But I want to do one more question to Norman, because we need to know what is the prospect of this shutdown. Sir, what message does this send about US political stability? You already said that political stability in United States is very unstable, and leadership in the world. I want to add one small question with this. Could other countries exploit or respond to US distraction? I know you understand which country I mean. I'm talking about China's dominance.
Yes, it's based on the current situation. If you are another country looking to do trade, previously the standard was the U.S., the United States, the Western world. It was the standards for doing trade, commerce, and stability. Currently, that do not exist. People are questioning, looking at alternatives. China has put itself out there as being a alternative. So the world is looking at other ways of getting work done, trade, commerce. We have no idea in the United States when this impasse will resolve itself. Congress is not giving any indication on stopping this. The work situation here in the United States is paralyzed, as we mentioned, and the prospect is very bleak right now on any type of resolution this year, honestly, this year. So countries have to reassess. We can't sit around and wait for the United States to deal with its ongoing issues. It may have a temporary resolution, but we do not have a long-term situation. So they have to look at long-term. What can we do? China is emerging as a option, a stable options in the midst of what's going on. So there's going to be some changes, some shifts in countries, how they deal with trade and how they deal with the United States. And United States may become the alternative instead of the preferred options for dealing with business and trade in the future.
Sir, one question I especially made for you, because you are watching from day one these issues and you are trying to find out the solutions. Sir, what mechanisms exist domestically, I mean within the US politics and globally, to mitigate global risk from US institutional dysfunction?
Currently, there's very minimal options here in the States because of the situation with the workforce. You have to understand our economy is based on people working. We do not have a automated system where we can automatically get things done. The states are struggling right now to basically take care of its own needs in the midst of the federal government. These efforts are straining the budgets of the states. So they have to make drastic decisions on how we're going to do things, and it comes down to workforce. We have to trim down the workforce in order to maintain our existing relationship. So relationships, the states internally with other countries has to make a shift. We can't depend on the government, big brother, to basically save us. We have to make alternatives. The states have to make alternative agreements with other countries dealing with free trade, commerce, and doing day-to-day business.
All right, sir. Beside all these things, the sufferings of the American people and federal workers, I still getting a positive vibe on Republicans from the Republic-backed medias. One media says the US is a global superpower, domestic political dysfunction can have major international spillovers, raises broader questions about governance, dramatic resilience and global leadership. Media is divided, sir. America is divided, sir, and also political leaders are divided, but people are suffering. We want to just shift from this subject to Russia, Ukraine, because at the breaking news I said Russia had shot down dozens of Ukrainian drones towards different Russian parts of cities, and one people at least killed. I want to begin from our international affairs commentator, sir. The conflict is heating up again. Russia claims to have tested a nuclear capable cruise missiles. The US responded with warnings and strategic messaging, and before the show you are telling that people are leaving from Russia and Ukraine, from both the countries. I just want to know from you, sir, what does Russia's missile test tell us about the current phase of the Ukraine war and nuclear escalation risk, and how world should be cautious?
Well, thank you for changing the topic into the Ukraine-Russia aggression. From social media and other sources, I have confirmed that a green streak of light has been seen in the skies over Russia and Ukraine, and the fact that you were mentioning that a nuclear capacity cruise missile was tested, in fact it was. And of course, on the other side, we see cooperation between Ukraine and Croatia out of all countries. Let me just tell you what happened. The Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Croatia's Deputy Prime Minister and Defense Minister Ivan Anosic has discussed continued military support, cooperation, defense and in veteran programs. This is just another part of cooperation between the neighborhood surrounding Ukraine, and of course it carries enormous significance given that Donald Trump had just said it is not the time right now. I wish to not meet Vladimir Putin in Hungary, and that's why the previous Budapest meeting had been called off, as Donald Trump is now visiting various countries in Asia. So of course, if you want to look at the aspects of United States of America, they are reduced to only commenting the fact that we are going to pressure Russia's oil companies in a bid to attempt to stop them aggressing further into Ukraine. And of course, we know that there was a meeting held by UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer a couple of days back regarding the coalition of the willing, a joint cooperation of countries that are planning to help Ukraine, even while US support seems faltering.
Right, sir. Let me know the Washington impression from Norman. Norman, you live in Washington. You work in Washington, you follow most of the important offices based in Washington as federal administration, Donald Trump administration. My question would be, how credible are the US warnings regarding the test of cruise missile with nuclear materials, and what strategic messaging is being sent by Washington DC, especially Department of War, Department of Defense or Department of State? It is a very, very important impression world wants to know from Washington.
Yes, the response to this this new technology, this new nuclear, uh, we call it the new nuclear age, the weapons. Washington right now is taking the philosophy that this new missile is not credible. It's merely a test, and it hasn't been substantiated. The problem with that is because of the technology and utilized with this new missile and its testing, it's hard to trace and track. So we're taking the role of dismissal. Is just another thing. It's nothing solid. It's nothing we need to concern about. It's not going to affect our technology of the Golden Dome and the Tomahawk. This is just something that is being put out there, and the president is trying to downplay that, hey, everything's okay. They just have a new toy, and it's not going to affect how we do business day to day.
All right, Norman, let me welcome a person who is really awesome in international affairs. He is a professor of political science in the University of Dhaka, the most reputed university in South Asia. Sir, I want to include you. You already heard that Kremlin tested nuclear capable cruise missiles. US has expressed its concern. I just want to know from you, what are the global implications of a potential shift in nuclear capable weaponry development in region like Europe by Russia?
Thank you, gentlemen. I think I have told you before in this show that what option remain for Russia after this sanction on the oil and Russian export of oil. So what is option remaining for the Putin? So that's the response it came through, particularly when the Budapest summit was cancelled last week, and also the impose of sanction on Russian oil and refineries. So Putin has no much more option left. That's why this test is going on, and I think the incorporation of the nuclear reactor in that, in the missile, it increased its range, it exceeded nearly 15,000 kilometers, and it flew over 15 hours. So it's no limit of that nuclear missile. So that's how I think it's a message that Putin wanted to give to the US and also the US allies that, yeah, so if no option remain, like if you want to curtail my oil export, and then I have to go through these options. So that's the dangerous provocation that actually Putin's this nuclear test is giving us, and it also like international politics, we call it like a war, balance of power. Like that's how Putin give us a message like, okay, I want to sit you again in the negotiation table. So if you want to impose my into sanctions, then I have option for switching the nuclear button. So that's why I think it's a provocation in terms of bringing back into the table, and again in the negotiation. Rather, USA abandoned that negotiation last week. So my colleague,
right, sir. One important article I just want to share with both of you and Norman as well. I was reading one article in Russia Today's web page. They have written same as you said, that Putin does not have much options in his hand right this moment. He might do one thing: he will not put nuclear bomb to Ukraine. Rather, he will choose Washington. He will choose France. He will choose other places allies, who are becoming more powerful than Russia. And one information has given, Putin is turning into 74, and Russia has developed their nuclear weapon 74 years back. Probably he will make a equation on this according to his age is growing up. Sir, I want to come to you, because what are the global implications of political shift? Professor Rashid very nicely described. I want to know how might neighboring states or NATO countries and other actors respond to these developments. I mean the nuclear capable cruise missile tested by Kremlin.
Well, of course, the test is going to send shockwaves throughout the entirety of Europe, as most of the European nations are increasingly expanding their defense budget spending. And not just that, we know previously that NATO said everyone must of the NATO membership must increase their spending to 5% of their GDP behind defense strategies up until the year 2035. But you asked me a question regarding the neighborhood, but I see a different dynamic. I want to include the fact that the strongest ship, warship of the United States Navy is now in Trinidad and Tobago, expecting to beat or to defeat these so-called narco traffickers. And as Donald Trump says, it's the entirety of Venezuela and its leader Nicolas Maduro who is directly involved in some kind of narco trafficking towards the United States. Well, the problem is not in the Caribbean, but the problem relays back to those who are consumers of such drugs inside United States of America, which has not been questioned by the authorities there. But the entirety discussion was regarding Russia and its cruise missile capacities. We know that Venezuela is one of those nations as well who produce oil as well as Russia. And I see a dynamic in which a Russian base may be built in the upcoming days in Caracas and the nearby waters surrounding Venezuela.
So you see so many escalated points and steps. I want to go to a break, but we need to conclude these topics with a question to two gentlemen, Norman and Professor Rashid. First, I want to go to Professor Rashid. Sir, what pathways exist for de-escalation and what obstacles stand in the way right this moment?
So I think the biggest signal would be like the no expansion of NATO anymore. Like I think we are not in a unipolar world anymore. If Russia, I mean, if USA and its allies like NATO, they said, okay, we'll declare the rule of the world. That's no longer function. So I think Russia also have its rights of self-determination. So Russia would not allow NATO expansion anymore. So that's the biggest. I mean, if you want to de-escalate this war, there should be a declaration that there will be no more NATO expansion. That's the biggest, I think, de-escalating message would be. And then I think all other parties like the European allies who is actually escalating the war again, supporting the Ukraine, they are also similarly responsible as long as Russia is responsible to escalate this war. So they have to also sit and make a conclusive agreement that we have to stop this war by non-expansion of NATO, and Russia have its own rights of self-determination as a multipolar world.
Before I go, I just want to take a short answer from Norman because Norman has a study on this. Norman, what are the pathways to stop this escalation between Russia and Ukraine? And you are hearing Professor Rashid very nicely. He said NATO has to accept no more expansion of NATO.
Yes, I'm just going to briefly say we have to renew arms control dialogue. Dialogue is the key. They have to talk about de-escalation, what term I'm going to call resolutions that de-escalate and calm the situation down. Right now, with this new technology, there's a propensity for smaller countries to develop their own nuclear capabilities in light of the United States' current internal situation and its unstable response and dealing with an ability to control conflict. So people are now countries are now looking at ways that we can protect ourselves and get into this nuclear arms game. It's a game. It's a lack of trust. We have a lack of trust, so we can't depend on the big countries to protect us. So we have to look at our own situation and put things in place that we can negotiate and have some leverage.
All right, Norman, dear audience, we'll go for a short commercial break, but after the break, we'll emphasize to discuss US-China trade deal framework.
World-class gym facility with exclusive equipment for man and woman. a restaurant of delicious local and international cuisine. Fully air-conditioned building with spacious banquet, car lift, sky view rooftop restaurant, all in one. Grand Club Limited, Mirpur 10, Dhaka.
কি এমন জিনিস যেটা সব লোকে খায়, ছোটরা খেলে পরে কেঁদে মায়ের কাছে যায়, বৃদ্ধ লোক খেলে পরে মাথায় দেয় হাত, যুবক যুবতীরা খেলে পরে এদিক ওদিক তাকায়?
ছেড়ে দে শয়তান, ছেড়ে দে, দেহ পেলে আমার মন পাবি না, ছেড়ে দে।
কোন ফলের বীজ নেই বলো দেখি দাদা, বলতে না পারলে হবে তুমি গাধা।
মন্দিরা চক্রবর্তী কার সাথে প্রেম করছে?
আমি এখন মা হতে চলেছে।
চিনেছি তোমারে আকারে প্রকারে, দিনের আলো রাতের আধারে।
কোন বাসায় শুধু দুজন থাকে, দরজা জানালা ছাদ কিছুই থাকে না?
পা, পায়ের নুপুর, ছন্দ,
মনে হচ্ছে কি ছু দিয়ে জাদু মন্ত্র করছে।
এক্স্যাক্টলি, পায়েরে নুপুরা।
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. As we said that US-China trade deal framework is in the top ranking of world news. Let me give you the updates, then I will ask questions to my distinguished panelists. The US and China has tentatively agreed a framework deal that avoids 100% tariffs on China and defers China's rare earth export controls ahead of a summit between Donald Trump and Xi Jinping. Let me begin with our international affairs commentator because he is in depth study on this subject. That what are the likely global economic consequences if this deal holds or if it falls apart?
Well, thank you for the important question, and of course I want to let my viewers know that US and China as of recent days are sworn enemies. Of course they don't have military confrontation as of yet, but of course China's expansionism in the South China Sea has most American allies concerned. But coming to this framework agreement that you mentioned, you know, Marco Rubio and Wang Yi seems to try to understand one another, see over the differences between the two sides. And of course the deal will include soybean, one of the agricultural products that may be traded between one another. And we know that top firm in America had purchased the Chinese app called TikTok. So there, the agreement also is sealed regarding a deal that have reached over the purchase of TikTok. So that is quite so important regarding the deal between these two nations.
All right, let me get the impression from Norman from Washington, then I will conclude this subject with Professor Rashid. He is very knowledgeable on this particular issue. Professor Rashid is very keen to follow the international events like this. Norman, how credible is the framework? Is this a substantive shift or merely a stopping point? How do you consider this?
Yes, the current framework is just a model. It's very fragile. It could go either way. It can explode, it can increase, it can maintain its level. But we're now, China's introducing this new, what I call green and digital technologies that is challenging the Western way of dealing with things. And we have to, the United States and the Western world has to understand that there's alternatives, there's options. The tariffs is causing people to reconsider their position and how they dealing with business. The United States is pushing the use of tariffs to maintain a level of control or existence, while the rest of the world is looking for alternatives. China is instituting the green and digital technology. They have the abilities to do things, and people are now considering that option.
All right, Norman, I have two back-to-back questions. I should say these are tough questions for Professor Rashid. What implications does this have for the supply chains, rare earth control and technological competition? It is one part for you. Another one is technical. Is this deal a sign of de-escalation between US and China strategic rivalry or a tactical pause by United States?
Thank you so much. So, in terms of like we living in a very interdependent world, and I know although China is almost sufficient in every aspect, but they still need some technological, like the microchips they are importing from the USA. So that's, and also that they have cultivated a large number of rare earth materials that US also need from China. So I think this deal is like that very much necessary for this global supply chain continue to supply these materials. I think the raw materials that's mostly important for. But the important issues is like there is a mistrust also going on between the two countries, like how like the 5G, when 5G started, there's a huge repercussion against China's controlling the 5G technology. And also in many aspects, they are very far advanced in terms of this technological war that we are having in this current world. So the biggest implication of this trade deal, I think, would be like we already seen the gold market, gold prices coming down. Nearly, I have seen that $400 going down in the last 1 week or so. So that's a signal like this deal will again boost up the trade and commerce, and also the stock market in US and also global stock market is also rising with the news that would continue the businesses, and also there is a biggest concern that and also the last week there is a huge sense of worry about the oil supply, whether oil gonna be used. There is global supply of oil, but if the deal come out positively, then there will be more need of wells. So that's how the global oil prices also coming up again. So this is how the biggest implication this deal have in the international market, stock market, and also the safe haven materials that we have. Yeah.
Sir, let us know from Norman what are the repercussions or reactions or response from other US allies. My question is, how might other blocs like European Union or from ASEAN respond to a loosened US-China trade tensions? They might have something to say, they might have something to express, because if one party goes for a deal, other party have the expressions. Mr. Norman.
Yes, as I mentioned before, the EU and Japan, we just left with meetings with Japan. They are now looking at intensify their own trade and investment engagements with Asia, Southeast Asia. As I mentioned, the digital and green economies are growing, and the United States has yet to define a plan, an economic trade plan for Southeast Asia and other parts of the rest of the world. Things are evolving, and other countries are now looking at things that they can do instead of waiting for the US or the Western world to basically give them direction. So they're creating their own path based on their environment and based on their region. We are now seeing a shift of regional responsibility, controlling their own destiny instead of waiting for a superpower country, the United States and the rest of the world, to tell them what to do. It is not moving forward, is not to the best interest of any country to depend on another country for their future. So they have to create their own destiny. So they have to go out and create their own relationships and engage in things that will help them based on their region, not what's happening in the western part of the world.
Norman Flatbarnes from Washington, I really appreciate your very easy way to analyze the complicated issue. Sharing with our audience is so much appreciable, and I really appreciate the way you do your journalism. I'll see you tomorrow again, and I wish you a very good day from the entire team of this production. Sir, we still have curiosity to put on the table ASEAN Summit, China Free Trade Area 3 2.0 deal. Summary is like that ASEAN and China have signed an upgraded free trade agreement FTA 3.0 that deepens commitments in digital, green economy and infrastructural cooperation, signaling a shift in regional trade architecture amid US-China tensions. I want to begin from Shamsulam Pantha, our international affairs commentator. Sir, what strategic implications does the ASEAN-China FTA upgrade have for the Indo-Pacific trade order?
Well, thank you for this question regarding the ASEAN summit. We know this time around, and not just that, Malaysia seems to be in a position to be hosting foreign leaders every now and then. It wasn't just earlier on this year that Anwar Ibrahim, the Prime Minister of Malaysia, had called forward for Asian nations to come for a summit to understand what is happening. But this time around, it is none other than Donald Trump who had joined. Of course, it was also joined by Prime Minister of Japan, Sanae Takaishi. So right now, what this entirety of cooperation, if you would call it, the summits you would call it, all come back to one important issue. We already picked it out, but I want to mention it again for the betterment of our viewers. These rare earth elements, or REEs, these are a group of 17 metallic elements which are, of course, I'll give you the names of some. It include lanthanum, cerium, neodymium, promethium and many more. And let me give you sector by sector on which sectors they are used in. It's of course used in electronics and communication, renewable energy and electric vehicles, defense and aerospace, industrial applications, and of course medical and scientific uses. All of these segments that I mentioned have huge implications in those living in first world nations. And this is why America and China seem to be battling over who will control the production. It's not about finding where these elements are, it's about trying to refine them into a process and to be implemented into the daily life. Currently, China holds almost 50 to 65% of global production and controls 85% of global processing of rare earth elements, while the United States has 15% of global market share, if you would call it. And it is of course mined in the Mountain Pass mine in California. It is mined, but it's refined in Asia. So of course they have strategic
I must appreciate you. Very fascinating data you have put for better understanding of our distinguished viewers, sir. I just want to ask, you have heard the data he has put on the table. I must say it is very fascinating. Sir, how might this affect other major powers like United States, EU countries, Japan, South Korea and their trade or strategic positioning in Asia?
Thank you. So, I mean, when Donald Trump initiated this trade war, so every country is getting shockwaves. And I think the better way is to find out an alternatives. That's how China is seeing this is an opportunity to expand our market in other areas apart from US. And that's how they're repositioning this free trade agreement with these neighboring countries and create more opportunities to trade among them. And because these are the materials that are needed. I mean, the East Asian countries, the other Asian countries, they're also, I mean, immensely expanding their economy, and they also have a huge sophisticated technologies. So why the focus should be on America only? That's why China thinking about this. Okay, let's build our new empire in the Southeast Asian colonies and East Asian neighboring countries where I can easily trade, and there is a less time, energy, and resources will also incur through that processes. That's how I think this free trade agreement on these issues like the green technology, infrastructural sharing, and cooperation among this nation. I think it's creating new avenues for more cooperation and more opportunities for Chinese economy to grow, and also the other countries, they will be also immensely benefited by this kind of sharing of this, like the raw materials, the rare earth elements. That is the new future of our world. Like, you know, so far we have been dependent on the fossil fuel, but now the expansion of this the electric car and the batteries, that raw materials, which give us a new direction of world. That's how the Southeast Asian countries and the Asian countries try to see their future, and also happily they can depend on their own resources and cooperation, mutual cooperation among China and other countries. And also the Malaysian role you focus in before this event, they also have a greater role in terms of controlling the conflict in Cambodia and Thailand the last week also. So that's how the Asian, the way European Union function. So Asia have a greater opportunities, and particularly after this trade war that initiated Donald Trump, I can see a new horizon is emerging through the Asian countries and also Southeast Asia.
So far I understand the summary of your statement. The deal show about China's efforts to build parallel trade architecture despite Western huge pressure.
Right.
But I want to relate this opportunity with Bangladesh.
Right.
As we are living in Bangladesh, and Bangladesh is very potential emerging country. Sir, how could Bangladesh and other South Asian countries engage to be attracted or to be benefited or to be affected in this new dimension?
I think the biggest problem is the countries like Bangladesh is facing is like, since its main market is US, like we still unable to manage our trade diversification. We still very much exporting few materials like the ready-made clothes, and we have huge labor power working in outside the country. So we have to think about the trade diversification. That is very important thing. And also we have to go for our we also bring new technology in our countries so that we can get benefited from this, the rare earth materials that we are exploring the world at the moment. So I think since we have to buy a certain amount of materials from US under the new trade agreement with the USA, because of like, so if you want to, earlier we had a huge number of trade with the China, but since now we have to balance the trade with the USA that Donald Trump imposed us, that's a restriction, I think, to expansion, to get the new opportunities from where the raw materials are available. So that's how I think the bilateral agreement with USA, which also put condition like we have to buy sugar from there, we have to buy wheat from them. So that's how it actually reducing our opportunities to where most other opportunities available in cheaper prices. So that's how I think we need to have a trade diversification. We need to have a sophistication technology bringing back into our country. Then how we can actually reduce our dependency to some countries and taking the opportunities more available in other areas, other regions.
Very
That's
interesting findings I found from Professor Rashid. I really appreciate, and very fascinating, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, we have still things to discuss, but from production team we are forced to go for a short commercial break.
স্পেশাল সেলিব্রিটি শো তারকার ঝলক দেখবেন প্রতি শুক্রবার রাত 9:30 মিনিটে।
ভালোবাসা একবার তুমি বউ কইয়া ডাকো।
হ্যাঁ গো,
আর কত দূর?
আরে আমি তো ফিডের গাড়ির লগে।
তোমার গরু হাঁস মুরগি মাছ তো অনশন শুরু কইরা দিছে।
কি কও? অনশন শুরু কইরা দিছে? কেডা? হাঁস মুরগি মাছ।
আরে ওগো মতি গতি দেখা মনে হইতাছে এসএফি ছাড়া কিছুই খাইবো না।
হ্যাঁ গো, এসএফিটার খবর ওরা জানলো কেমনে?
আরে ভালো জিনিসের খবর ছড়াতে কি আর মাইক লাগে? খবর ভাসে বাতাসে বাতাসে।
আরে দেখো, এসএফিটার জাদু।
সম্পূর্ণ নিজস্ব তত্ত্বাবধানে বিশেষজ্ঞদের সমন্বয়ে প্রস্তুত হয় এসএফিডের পশু খাদ্য। অত্যাধুনিক প্রযুক্তিতে তৈরি এই পশু খাদ্য যেমন নিরাপদ তেমনি স্বাস্থ্যকর। এসএ ফিড, নিরাপদ ফিড, স্বাস্থ্যকর প্রোটিন। এসএ অ্যাগ্রোফিডস লিমিটেড একটি এসএ গ্রুপ অফ কোম্পানিজের প্রতিষ্ঠান।
Grand Palace, 5-star chain hotel, Zinda Bazaar, Sylhet. Local and international cuisines. Exclusive banquet hall for all events. 5-star luxurious rooms and suites with bulletproof glass.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. As you know, a fragile ceasefire is going on through Israel and Gaza. I want to put this question to our international affairs commentator first, sir. Still attacking and retaliation is going on. So I should recommend you to explain why did you call it always a fragile ceasefire?
Because I have been seeing this aggression happening for the better time in this show, and as it has started way back in 2023, ever since October 7th of that year, the fighting has been ongoing. And not only so, it is not the violation of ceasefire between the Gazans and the Israel. There is another news of today that I want to bring out. 2 people were killed in Israeli airstrike in southern Lebanon in the latest violation of a ceasefire agreement, according to the Lebanese media. So it's not just the Palestinians that are facing this Israeli aggression. It's also neighboring Lebanon that sees a breaking of ceasefire every now and then. And of course, the Israeli army had said that Hamas had transferred a body of another hostage towards the International Committee of the Red Cross, which is liable to look after this hostage transfer deal of the bodies that have been kept by the two sides. And yes, the United Nations say that the Gaza Strip are continuing to move north in large numbers despite destroyed infrastructure, deadly unexploded ordnance, and a lack of basic services. So this is by far as I have, but there is also one news that I would want to point out to our viewers. The Israeli army demolished 5 Palestinian homes in an agricultural shed across the occupied West Bank, claiming lacking of having a building permit, according to various witnesses. So me calling it a fragile ceasefire all this while is because of such a news that comes out from international media.
You started to tell it from the day one regarding the ceasefire effort, and you explained what is the difference between ceasefire effort and ceasefire. I really appreciate that. Sir, I have got a very different and very bold breaking news right this moment from Times of Israel. Israel officially has declared that it will decide which foreign troops are acceptable to join a proposed international stabilization forces in Gaza. Israel especially opposes the involvement of Turkey in this force. What are you going to say?
Thank you. So I think the stabilization forces that are put into the place, like the Egyptian stabilization forces put into the place, there is a guarantee of this peace deal that we have last week. So that's how, I mean, but the amount of work is actually huge there at the moment. But I think when the deal was taken place, there was this Middle Eastern countries, and also the other, YC countries is there as well. So I think it's the biggest stake for the Muslim community, YC, Turkey, Iran. So all other, every countries have a similar intention to stop this war and to put a minimum guarantee on human rights, ensuring human rights for the Palestinian civilians who are immensely affected by this war. Although we do not have the actual number, but I think there is a huge casualties that taken place, more than 100,000 or 200,000. Who knows? So I think the amount of investment that we are taking place for recovering the Israeli hostages, that has to be actually put into place for the civilians who are in the dying situation at the moment. Like they need emergency shelter, emergency food, emergency access to water. So you are recovering the dead bodies, but you are more effort is given has to be given for the benefit of who are on the way of dying. So that's how I think I can see that more and more international forces have to be involved to the emergency reconstruction of the Gaza, and Israel opposition to Turkey's force or other forces actually dampening that situation, dampening that positive that intention that the international countries like Turkey's or Iran's or other countries wanted to have in this situation to recovering giving more life and giving more water, access to humanitarian support to the communities. I think Israel opposition is actually disrespecting this deal.
Would you mind to answer in one line, who has owned this deal, Netanyahu or a civilization called like Gazan?
I think, say again, sorry.
Who has owned this ceasefire deal?
Yeah.
Netanyahu, I mean Israelis, or a civilization called Gazan, almost destroyed?
I think from the day one, Israel doesn't believe in de-escalation. They always look for opportunities for new attack, more killings, more bloodshedding, and establishing greater Israel country, which doesn't stop in Gaza only. They want to occupy, as you said, the Lebanon, they want to occupy Syria, Transjordan, all of it. So although it's like we can, it's a pause for a few weeks, I think they always look for this to escalate, because they have immense number of technologies, immense number of war and ammunition. So they will not stop. So, but the world community has to stop it. World community already give us a message that the Israel, the Zionism project is failed.
Yes.
And yeah, that's the message.
That was a pretty good answer. Today we want to celebrate the birthday of one man who was born on 28th October 1955, and he has changed the entire world's lifestyle, working style, innovation styles. He is none other than Bill Gates. Today is his birthday, and he is a very famous for his philanthropic job. He visited Bangladesh several times to do his philanthropic works, and I'm very fortunate that I have gone through his book Business at the Speed of Thought, which has been published in 1999. He has indicated some other future of this planet, the road ahead, in 1995 in his book, and his last book was very much famous, How to Avoid a Climate Disaster. We want to say happy birthday to Bill Gates, and for your contribution to this planet, it is very much appreciated. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll again come back on tomorrow.